Good morning, sir. We are Group 12. Myself, Gundu Naveen, and my team members are Hegde Vinay, Harshit Rawal, and Harshit Kumar Singh. Today, we are talking about the case Mahindra Sector Project. In this case, the main concern is about the how to manage. Let me take you through the case summary. Mahindra started in 1940s, created a separate division for farm equipment in its later stages. It became the market leader in tractors with success of models like Balwan, Arjun, etc. Anand Mahindra, though he was from the arts background, he headed the engineering R&D department. Mahindra team had many talented engineers like Mr. Dhanuka. Managing such talent was very difficult for the management. KJ Devasya, head of marketing, was one of the key people responsible for Mahindra being able to keep up with the changing trends in the agricultural industry. He, along with R.N. Nayak, gave birth to the idea of a hybrid tractor which could be used both in the fields and as a transport vehicle. This project was named as the Tractor Shan. The tractor development took more than 8 years and the expected budget was exceeded and timeline expectations were not reached. After facing a lot of roadblocks, including multiple prototypes, the project took a different form, but still taught the leaders a lot of critical lessons.
The idea for Shan was incepted in 1995. It took shape in 1996 when conceptualized by Mr. Nayak. Developing along the years, the first engineering prototype was ready in 1998. The MNPD process was introduced at the dawn of 21st century. MNPD stands for Mahindra New Product Development. This process introduced many successful models. 5 more prototypes were produced and certified in 2001. The company faced a major setback when Mr. Nayak resigned in 2002. Nonetheless, 15 prototypes were built in the same year. Shan was finally launched in 2006, overcoming uncountable odds. Next slide will be explained.
Coming to the analysis. From its humble beginnings itself, Mahindra and Mahindra has never shown the slightest speck of rust on its well-oiled corporate machinery. The ever-changing structures of the company have been steered by fantastic leaders who have shown their spine to back innovation and creativity while maintaining a cautious balance with conventional corporate wisdom. This continuous endorsement of the so-called mavericks like Dhanuka and Nayak is what has led to the sustained and continuous growth of the company. The sector was one such offbeat idea which originated from KG Devasya's astute observation of the fact that for Indian farmers, the usual tractor was serving as a multi-purpose vehicle. So, to sum up all these varied points, the keyword of the day, at least for Mahindra and Mahindra, has been and shall continue to be innovation.
To understand more about the case, we need to have some knowledge and idea of what an organic and a mechanistic design is. And later on, we'll connect the dots to how does this concept relate to the case in itself. So an organic and a mechanistic design are two different types of designs that a workplace can structure itself. Mechanistic, in as it may sound like, it's where most of the processes are very laid down, where individual specialization is given preference, and in an organic case, joint specialization is given preference. In a joint, in an organic scenario, the whole structure is very complex, where task forces and teams are the main constituents or entities of the whole organization, while in a mechanistic design is the hierarchy that supersedes anything else. Also, from a decision making point of view, in an organic design it's very decentralized, and it's very centralized in a mechanistic design. And when it comes to standardization, the standardization is very critical aspect of a mechanistic design, while in an organic case it's mostly mutually adjusted, and where face-to-face contact for the coordination and other purposes is done rather than a standardized procedure. Most communication is done verbal in a organic, while most communication would be written and as well as recorded in a mechanistic environment. So mainly we can understand that a mechanistic design gives a lot of rules and regulations, and though it gives stability, it is at the cost of taking ability for the organization to take its own form when needed. So the response time for an organization falls, but the more efficient the organization gets, more efficient and is better at handling crisis situations. Now let's try to connect the dots of, after understanding what an organic and mechanistic design is, to how formalization of innovation happened in Mahindra case. The formal procedure that was adopted was called the MNPD, where a product development was more formalized in this particular stage-wise manner. MNPD gave a lot of stability again to the innovation part, but this was as good as moving from an organic design to mechanistic design. it also anyways it was difficult, and it also gathered a lot of natural resistance from talented engineers who were anyways very difficult to manage. And it has seen through the traits of talented engineers that to manage them within the rules was anyways getting difficult, and MNPD just enhanced it. But even the best of the engineers who were difficult to manage, they also agreed that MNPD will give some stability and fasten the way innovation is done. And it can clearly be seen through the milestone, as it took 3 years about to reach a first prototype, but in the next 3 years Mahindra reached to 15 prototypes and also certifications within the next 3 years. And definitely the credit goes to the formalization that the MNPD brought in. But all this speed was at the cost of thinking freedom of the innovators, and it had potential to even hamper further innovation that could happen. Having said that, MNPD also made a very important point mandatory, that was the marketing requirement phase, which in the whole case of sector was not very much looked into, or rather it was very much intuition driven by people who were key people to the organization, as initially it had organic structure. And so the market requirement phase itself was lacking in this particular case, which might really be let the product progress into a disaster later on. So the very big pro of the MNPD was it brought in a lot of key phases, and one being the market requirement. Now, as we have understood the whole case, and we have also understood the key factors that the MNPD formalization brought in, and how mechanistic design was adopted from an organic structure, and how key people dependencies were eliminated with good timeline structure and also phase-wise development. But all this was at the cost of innovation. So it is important to realize that innovation happens with creative mindset, and for creative mindset, freedom is the utmost important environment that fosters innovation. And so we would like to, as a group, we would like to make some recommendations which we can observe from the ongoing trend where an auto industry is facing huge crisis. And in spite of that, the electric vehicle startups have kept on moving ahead, and also they've released their products and also raising funds. So how is one huge component or upcoming component of startups into electric vehicles are continuing to be successful even in this tumultuous period of which auto industry is facing? The reason is very simple, that a new mentor innovator kind of model is being adopted, where the innovation part, rather than adopting a mechanistic structure into the company, is which also means you will lose the organic way of doing things. So in this particular setup, what we are trying to do is the innovation is completely done in a different entity, which is the startup, and those particular startups are invested. These are receive investment from big auto giants who at very mature. So when the project matures, at that time they adopt it into their mechanistic system. And some very key examples can be how Mr. Ratan Tata from Tata Motors invested into Tork Motors, or how TVS as a group invested into Ultraviolet, or Hero invested into Aether Energy, and Bajaj invested into Yulu. So these are key startups that are coming up with their innovative products in auto industry, and the investors are big auto giants who later on take it ahead when the product matures. So in this way, the organic structure stays in a separate entity where innovation can foster, thereby giving a good environment of freedom, when there are no much laid down rules, but freedom to try, experiment and fail, which is very important for innovation. And once that innovation matures and it needs a handholding of a concrete system and stability, a big giant will adopt itself into a formal procedure which can help it to achieve certification, standardization, formalization, and a manufacturing ready setup, for which mechanistic design probably is more suitable. So we recommend adopting such models of mentor innovator model for cases like Mahindra, where they have to choose between innovation and managing innovation between an organic or a mechanistic design. Thank you.